In this lesson, we're going to explore a quite difficult and important piece of grammar, the passive voice. The good part, we're going to tell you not to use it, or at least not unless you have a very good reason to do so. The bad part, many people overuse it in their writing without even realizing. And if you do, you're going to have to learn to recognize a passive sentence and then rewrite it into an active one. That is the essence of what you're going to learn in this lesson. Now, in this first video, we're going to tell you what the passive voice is and what a passive sentence looks like. If you ended up in this trial lesson from our passive voice article on Yoast.com and think you've already got a good grasp of what passive voice means, you may consider skipping this video and moving on to the second video. In that video, we'll teach you how to actually rewrite passive sentences into active ones. For this lesson, you'll need to know some basic grammar. What is a subject, what is a verb, and what is an object. If you don't know this yet, check out the basic grammar PDF we've provided in the text. If you're not sure what passive voice is, pay close attention. The passive voice can be really tough. Now let's start with this. Any sentence in the English language can be one of two things, active or passive. And it's easier to explain what a passive sentence is by showing what an active sentence is first, because most sentences are active. In active sentences, the person, animal or thing that does something is also the subject of the sentence. Say, Michiel is building the Mac anthem. Michiel is the person doing something, building, and Michiel is also the subject of the sentence. The Mac anthem is the object. In passive sentences, the subject of the sentence is the person, animal or thing undergoing the action. Say, the Mac anthem is being built by Michiel. Michiel is still the person who performs an action, but the Mac anthem is now the subject, and Michiel has become the object of the sentence. The meaning hasn't changed, but the voice has changed from active to passive. There are three things that change in the sentence. The word order is different. Michiel and the Mac anthem switch places. The verb changes. Is building becomes is being built. And the word by is added to show that Michiel is still the one doing the building. As you can see, the active sentence and the passive sentence mean the same thing, but the perspective is a little different. Also, the passive sentence is a bit longer. Sometimes you can also leave out the actor. The Mac anthem is being built, for example, is a perfectly acceptable sentence. It just doesn't tell you that Michiel did the building. By the way, one of the few cases in which it's actually okay to use passive voice is when you don't know who did something, or when it's irrelevant who or what did it. Like when you ask, what is grown in these fields? You really just want to know whether it's potatoes or corn. You don't particularly care about the farmers that grow the crop. And what do farmers grow in these fields feels like a pretty weird question to ask anyway, doesn't it? Or maybe you don't want to share information on the actor. Imagine a police interview, for example, in which the policewoman says, "You were seen near the scene of the crime just 15 minutes before." She intentionally leaves out the person who did the seeing to protect them. But really, those are rare examples. In a large majority of the cases, using passive voice is completely unnecessary, which means you should avoid it. Why? Because using the passive voice almost always makes your writing more distant and your message less clear. There are two main reasons for this. First of all, the passive voice is wordy. Passive sentences are simply longer. Consider these two sentences. The passive voice almost always makes your message less clear. That's an active sentence. In passive voice, that would be, your message is almost always made less clear by using the passive voice. You say the same thing by using the passive, but you add 3 words. This can really add up if you use it too often. Secondly, passive sentences take longer to understand. Getting your message across with passive sentences is much more difficult. Why? Because your reader needs to spend more energy on making sense of the sentence. They're simply more difficult. That's because you only learn who was responsible for a certain action all the way at the end of the sentence. Forming a mental image of what is going on takes a tiny moment longer with passive sentences. These moments can easily add up if you overuse the passive voice. Whenever you use passive voice, always consider whether a better active alternative is available. Now that you know what the passive voice is and why you should avoid it in most cases, you're ready for the next step: rewriting your passive sentences into active ones. If you're not a native speaker of English or struggle with verb forms, we recommend you to first take a look at the Passive Voice Cheat Sheet PDF. It shows you a 4-step plan to rewrite your passive sentences. We're going to come back to that in the next video. But it also shows you what active verb corresponds with which passive verb in present, past and future. It's probably a good idea to study those last ones before you watch the second video, because that will make it a lot easier. In the next video, we'll show you how to avoid passive sentences and rewrite passive sentences into active ones.